My name is Elena Carter. I'm 36 years old, and 3 months ago, I learned that the person I trusted most in the world could disappear for 3 days and come back acting like I was the problem. For 6 years, I thought I was in a solid relationship. Not perfect, not fairy tale, but stable. My boyfriend, Mark, is 34. We lived together in the house I bought with my own money, talked about maybe getting married once things calmed down, and we're even starting to seriously discuss having kids in the next couple of years. I thought we were moving forward. I thought we were a team. That Monday morning started like any other. Mark grabbed his coffee, kissed me on the forehead, and said he'd stop for groceries on the way home because we were low on basically everything. He smelled like his usual cologne, joked about hating Mondays, then walked out the door. There was nothing strange in his voice, nothing in his eyes that suggested he was about to set my life on fire. If anything, he seemed distracted, but I figured it was work stress. Everybody's tired on a Monday. When 7 o'clock rolled around and he still wasn't home, I got annoyed, not worried. It wasn't the first time he'd said he'd grab groceries and then got stuck at the office or on some quick beer with coworkers. I texted him, "Hey, you alive? Do I need to order takeout?" The message didn't go through. I waited a minute and tried again. Nothing. His little delivered check never popped up. I told myself it was just a dead battery. By 8, the annoyance started to curdle into something colder. I called. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Same thing. By 9, I was pacing in the kitchen. I called his work. The receptionist sounded confused. "Oh, Mark? He left around 5:30. I asked if he'd said where he was going. She said no, just that he'd see them tomorrow. My stomach sank. I called his best friend. No answer. I called his sister. She hadn't heard from him all day. By the time I called his mom, her voice was already tremoring. She hadn't talked to him since the weekend. That night, I barely slept. Every car that went down our street made me jump. Every notification on my phone made my heart race and then crash again when it wasn't him. His mom wanted to start calling hospitals. I tried his phone over and over, even though I knew it would go straight to voicemail. It felt like screaming into a void. Tuesday morning, I went to the police station and filed a missing person report. The officer at the desk took me seriously at first. Any history of depression? Substance abuse? Does he ever disappear like this? I shook my head. No, he just vanishes, and his phone is off. They wrote everything down, promised to ping his phone and check security footage from places he might have gone. For a brief moment, I felt like someone was going to help me carry this. But then I saw it, the shift. The detective who came out with a printout glanced at something on his computer screen, and his expression changed from concern to something like tired pity. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "sometimes adults just need space. We'll keep the report open, but unless there are signs he's in immediate danger, there's only so much we can do in the first 48 hours. I'm not stupid. I knew what that meant. They pinged his phone, saw it had been at a hotel or someplace like that, and decided this wasn't an emergency. This was a man choosing to go off the grid. For a lot of women, that would have been the moment they started clinging to denial. For me, it was the moment something inside me snapped from fear into icy clarity. Tuesday afternoon, after staring at my silent phone for hours, I called a private investigator a coworker had recommended after her own messy breakup. His name was Raymond. His voice was calm, businesslike, a little sad. I told him everything, how long Mark and I had been together, how he'd left for work like normal, how he'd never come back, how the police suddenly acted like this was none of their business. Raymond didn't sugarcoat it. "Most of the time," he said quietly, "cases like this are exactly what you're afraid they are. I'll start right away. I'll have something for you within 24 hours. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying every tiny argument Mark and I had ever had. Every time he'd seemed distant, every time he'd said he needed to clear his head and gone for a drive. I started seeing patterns I'd brushed off before, the extra showers when he got home, the sudden concern about passwords, the way he always angled his phone away from me. I'd told myself I was insecure. Now those old feelings came back like a chorus singing, "I told you so." Wednesday morning, Raymond called. My hands shook when I picked up. "I found him," he said. "He's at the Westfield Hotel downtown, room 308. Checked in Monday evening." My throat went dry. Is he Alone? There was a pause. No. He's with a woman, early 30s maybe. They arrived together. They've stayed both nights. They've left the room together twice, for dinner last night and breakfast this morning. The words hit like physical blows. Do you want photos? He asked. Everything, I whispered. He emailed me 23 photos. I opened the first one with my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. There was Mark, sitting at a restaurant table with a woman I'd never seen before. He was laughing. Their heads were close together. The next photo showed them holding hands across the table. The one after that, walking through the hotel parking lot, her hand on his arm. Then there it was, his mouth on hers, clear as day, time-stamped Monday night. Another photo, both of them entering the hotel room together. Another, them leaving the room the next morning, casual, comfortable, like they'd done this 1,000 times. The last photo was from Wednesday afternoon. They were in the hotel lobby with luggage, hugging goodbye. Something inside me went very, very still. The shaking stopped. The crying stopped. It was like my body decided that emotions were a luxury I couldn't afford. I called Raymond back and asked him to write up a full report. Times, places, everything. Then I called a lawyer. Not a couples therapist, not a mediator. A lawyer. I explained that Mark and I weren't legally married, but had been living together for years, that the house was mine, bought before we ever met, that he'd contributed nothing to the down payment, and that my name was the only one on the title. I asked what my options were for making sure he couldn't claim half of my life after cheating his way through a 3-day hotel stay. By 6 that evening, I had the paperwork I needed in my email and a neat folder printed and laid out on the kitchen table. On top, the private investigator's report. Beneath, the photos. Alongside them, a written notice drafted by my lawyer, officially revoking his permission to live in my house and outlining a timeline for him to collect his personal belongings under supervision. It looked cold, maybe even ruthless, but it felt like armor. Mark walked in at 6:47 p.m., 3 days after he'd left for work. He looked normal, not guilty, not exhausted, not like someone whose family had been calling hospitals. He dropped his keys in the bowl by the door like he always did, kicked off his shoes, and smiled. Hey, he said, like he'd just come back from the gym. I was sitting at the table, hands folded in front of the folder. Hey, I answered. He wandered to the fridge, pulled out a bottle of water. What's for dinner? He asked casually, back still turned to me. My voice came out sharper than I intended. Where were you? He paused, then turned around slowly and took a sip. I needed some space, he said, to clear my head. For 3 days? I asked. Without telling me? Without telling your mother, your sister, anyone? With your phone shut off? His jaw tightened. That defensive look I'd seen before flashed across his face. I'm allowed to have time to myself, he snapped. I don't need to report my every move to you. I filed a missing person report, I said quietly. Your mom wanted to call hospitals. He rolled his eyes. That's so dramatic. I'm a grown man. If you were that worried, that's your issue. It doesn't mean I owe you an itinerary. There it was, the line. The one that told me exactly who he'd decided to be. I don't owe you explanations. He didn't say it word for word, but it was all there in his tone, in his posture, in the contempt simmering under his calm. I stood up slowly. You're right, I said. He blinked, thrown off. What? You're right, I repeated. You don't owe me explanations. I picked up the folder and walked around the table until I was standing in front of him. And I don't owe you a place to live. I handed him the folder. He opened it lazily at first, like he expected bills or some annoying paperwork. Then his face changed. Confusion, recognition, shock, panic. His fingers tightened on the pages as he flipped through the photos. Him at dinner, him holding hands, him kissing that woman in the hotel parking lot, him walking into the hotel room with her. What is this? He demanded, his voice suddenly thin. You had someone following me? The answers are in the report, I said. Page 3 has the hotel details. Page 5 has the timeline. Pages 6 through 8 have all 23 photos. His hands were shaking now. Elena, this isn't what it looks like. Yes, it is, I said. You checked into a hotel with another woman for 3 days while everyone who cared about you thought you were missing. That's exactly what it looks like. He took a step towards me. Just let me explain. No, I said, stepping back. You just told me you don't owe me explanations. I agree. You don't. And I don't owe you this relationship. His mouth opened and closed like he was searching for the right script. Apology? Excuse? Blame? She's just someone I reconnected with, he tried. Nothing happened the way you think. I was confused about us. I felt a cold, strange calm settle over me. You can stay in the guest room tonight while you figure out where you're going next, I said. You'll arrange a time with my lawyer to pick up your things. You're not sleeping in my bed again. You're not sharing my future again. We're done. His voice cracked. You can't just throw away 6 years over this. You threw it away in room 308 at the Westfield Hotel, I said. I'm just taking out the trash. He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he'd gotten used to the version of me that swallowed doubts and accepted half-truths. That version was gone. He finally dropped the folder on the counter, shaking with anger and fear. You're going to regret this, he muttered. I looked him in the eye. No, I said. I'm finally done regretting trusting you. He didn't know it yet, but that night was just the beginning. The real storm, the lies, the courtrooms, the parking lot showdowns with his family, was still coming. But as he stomped off toward the guest room, with his shoulders tense and his pride wounded, I felt something I hadn't felt since Monday morning. Not safety, not happiness, but control. For the first time in days, my life felt like it belonged to me again. That night felt longer than the 3 days he'd been gone. After our confrontation in the kitchen, Mark retreated to the guest room and slammed the door hard enough to rattle a picture frame. For a while, the house was quiet, the kind of quiet that hums in your ears and makes every breath sound too loud. Then I heard it, the soft thud of his footsteps, the creak of the floorboard in the hallway, and finally the muffled sound of him pacing in circles like a caged animal. An hour later, he tried the bedroom door. I'd locked it from the inside. He knocked once, twice, then harder. Elena, please, open the door. We need to talk. His voice wobbled in that familiar way he used when he knew he'd screwed up and wanted me to fix it for him. We already talked, I said through the wood. You just didn't like the outcome. I was confused, he insisted. About us. About everything. It didn't mean anything. You checked into a hotel with her, I reminded him. You turned your phone off. You let your mother think you might be dead. It meant enough. Silence stretched between us. Then he shifted tactics. I love you, he said, so soft I almost missed it. Please don't throw this away. I stared at the ceiling in the dark. If it meant nothing, I said quietly, you wouldn't have done it. He knocked again, then again, frustration creeping into each blow. You're overreacting. Couples work through stuff like this. You're not even giving me a chance. I swallowed the bitter laugh rising in my throat. You had 3 days in a hotel room to think about what you were doing, I said. That was your chance. Eventually, he stopped knocking. I heard him moving around downstairs, the sound of drawers opening and closing, a cabinet door slamming. His voice dropped to a murmur. At first, I thought he was talking to himself, but then I realized he was on the phone. I couldn't make out the words, just the low, urgent tone. Then the front door opened and slammed shut. I got up, went to the window, and watched his car pull away from the curb. My phone buzzed a minute later. Unknown number. Please don't do this. I love you. It was stupid. I'll do anything. I stared at the message until the words blurred, then blocked the number. I forwarded the PI report and photos to my lawyer, took a sleeping pill, and finally slipped into a heavy, dreamless dark. 5 days later, it barely felt like I'd had time to breathe. In that short stretch, I filed the formal separation paperwork, met twice with my lawyer, and answered what felt like 100 questions about my finances, the house, and exactly how long I'd been suspicious something was wrong. She studied the PI's photos with a clinical calm that reassured me. This is pretty clear-cut, she said. He walked himself into this mess. You don't need to set yourself on fire to keep him warm. She explained that because I'd bought the house before Mark moved in and never put his name on the title, he had no legal claim to it. Our finances had always been separate. His choice, ironically. It's more modern, he'd said back then. Sitting in my lawyer's office, her glasses perched on the end of her nose as she reviewed the paperwork, I realized how thoroughly that modern arrangement now protected me. I thought that would be the hard part, signing my name on the documents that would officially cut him out of my life. I was wrong. The hard part was how fast he tried to spin the story to make me the villain. Thursday afternoon, I was on my lunch break when a process server showed up at my job. He said my name, handed me a thick envelope, and walked away like he was delivering pizza. Inside was a restraining order application, filed by Mark, against me. According to the papers, I was emotionally volatile, had ambushed him with false accusations, and subjected him to illegal surveillance that made him fear for his safety. Reading those words, knowing what he had actually done, felt like swallowing glass. My lawyer and I were in court the next morning. Mark was there with his attorney, sitting at the opposite table, eyes red, jaw clenched, looking every inch the wounded, fragile man. His lawyer described me as obsessive, controlling, and jealous, someone who would go to extreme lengths to monitor her partner. He tried to paint Raymond, the PI, as a stalker, and the hotel photos as circumstantial. My lawyer stayed calm. She laid out the timeline. Monday morning, Mark left, didn't come home, phone off. Tuesday morning, I filed a missing person report. The police pinged his phone to a hotel downtown. They declined to act. Tuesday afternoon, I hired a licensed private investigator to ensure he wasn't in danger. The investigator observed Mark in public areas and hotel common spaces. No wiretaps, no hidden cameras, nothing illegal. Then she handed the judge the photos. He studied them for a long moment, then looked at Mark. "Sir," he said, "you disappeared for 3 days without informing your partner or family, turned your phone off, and checked into a hotel room with another woman. These photos show physical affection between you and that woman. Given that context, her hiring an investigator was not harassment. It was a reasonable response to a perceived emergency." Mark's lawyer tried to argue that nothing actually proves what happened in the room. The judge sighed. Two adults checking into one hotel room together for multiple nights and kissing in the parking lot is not circumstantial. It's common sense. He slid the papers back across the bench. Request for restraining order denied. Mark's shoulders sagged. His face crumpled into tears he hadn't managed to produce when I confronted him at home. His sister, sitting behind him, glared at me like I'd stabbed him. They walked out without a word. I thought that might be the end of his family's involvement. I underestimated their determination to protect their golden boy. Saturday morning, someone started pounding on my front door at 8 a.m. The kind of pounding that makes the walls shake. I looked through the peephole and saw his father. Gray hair, red face, fists like hammers. "Elena, open up," he shouted. "We need to talk." I cracked the door and kept the chain on. "What do you want?" He shoved the door hard enough to rattle the chain. "To talk to you woman to woman," he said, as if that phrase made any sense. "You're making a fool of my son over a misunderstanding." I stared at him. A misunderstanding? He was going through something, his father insisted, forcing his way in when I finally unlatched the chain to avoid ripping the frame right off the wall. Men get overwhelmed. They need space. "So they check into hotels with other women for 3 days?" I asked. "Turn their phones off and let their mothers think they're in a ditch somewhere?" "You don't know what happened in that room," he snapped. "You didn't see anything. All you have are some photos." I pulled up one of those photos on my phone, the one of Mark and the woman kissing in the parking lot, held it up to his father's face. "This is plenty." He glanced at it and snorted. "That's nothing. A kiss? You're throwing away 6 years over a kiss?" "It was a 3-day kiss in one hotel room," I said. "And I didn't throw anything away. Mark did. I'm just refusing to pick it back up." He tried a different angle, his voice softening. "He knows he made a mistake. He's devastated. You're supposed to work through these things. That's what relationships are. Forgiveness. Forgiveness without accountability is just permission," I said. "He made his choices. I'm making mine." His eyes hardened. "You think you're perfect?" he barked. "Maybe you were a terrible girlfriend. Maybe you drove him to this." I didn't flinch. "Is that what he told you? That my working full-time and coming home at 6 every night somehow forced him into a hotel room with another woman?" "You'll regret this," he growled on his way out. "When you're alone and miserable, remember you threw away a good man." "I'll remember I let a cheater go," I said. "Now get out of my house." He slammed the door so hard behind him that the picture frame in the hallway finally fell. Sunday afternoon, round 2 arrived. His mother and sister showed up on my porch with suitcases and tight, pinched faces. I barely had the door open before his sister said, "We're here to collect his things. All of them." "Make a list," I replied. "I'll have them ready by next weekend. You can pick them up while I'm here." "We're getting them now," she snapped, trying to step past me. I blocked the doorway. "No, this is my house. You're not wandering through my rooms grabbing whatever you want." His mother's eyes filled with tears immediately, weaponized and practiced. "How can you be so cruel?" she whispered. "He's heartbroken. You're leaving him with nothing." "He'll get what he's legally entitled to," I said, which, according to my lawyer, isn't much, considering he spent 3 days at the Westfield Hotel with someone else. "He told us nothing happened," his mother insisted. "They just talked. He was confused." "People who are just talking don't turn their phones off and share a hotel room for 3 nights," I replied. "You know that as well as I do." His sister's mask slipped. "You know what?" she sneered. "He told me you were boring in bed anyway. That's probably why he needed something exciting." The old me would have crumbled. The new me just smiled, sharp and tired. "Then I hope exciting was worth half his stuff and a decent reputation," I said, "because that's what it cost him." "You're not getting everything," she snapped back. "He deserves half this house." "The house I bought before I even met him?" I asked. "That his name isn't on? Good luck with that argument." His mother sniffed. "This is financial abuse. You're trying to leave him with nothing." "I'm trying to leave him with what's his and keep what's mine," I said. "If he wanted financial security, he shouldn't have gambled our relationship on a hotel fling." They left in a storm of threats about judges and lawyers and how I'd pay for this. The minute their car disappeared around the corner, I changed the locks. Again. Then I ordered cameras for the front and back doors. If Mark or his family decided to come back, I wanted footage, receipts, proof. That night, my phone lit up with messages from numbers I didn't recognize. "You're making a huge mistake. I love you. Please, can we talk?" Blocked. "It's me. I got a new phone. I'm begging you. I can't eat. I can't sleep." Blocked. "Stop being childish. We're adults. We can work through this." Blocked. On Tuesday, my lawyer called. "They filed a counterpetition," she said, almost sounding amused. "They're demanding spousal support, half the house value, and compensation for emotional distress caused by your cruel actions." "Can they actually get any of that?" I asked. "They can ask," she said. "Doesn't mean they'll get it. It will drag things out a few more weeks while we respond, though. You okay with that?" I looked around my quiet, freshly locked house. The folder was still on the table, the cameras were on their way, and the storm was far from over. But underneath the exhaustion and anger, there was a steady core of resolve. "I've waited 6 years to see him clearly," I said. "I can wait a few more weeks to be rid of him for good." What I didn't know yet was that Mark wasn't done trying to break things he no longer owned. He'd lost control of me, so he was about to go after the next best thing, my job, my reputation, and my sanity. I thought the paperwork, the court hearing, and the brutal confrontation would drain Mark's energy, that he would finally retreat into whatever quiet corner cheaters crawl into when their lies collapse. Instead, he evolved, from manipulative to obsessive, from guilty to vindictive. When someone like Mark feels power slipping through his fingers, they don't accept it. They claw at it. They stalk it. They try to poison it at the roots. It started with the car. On Monday morning, I stepped out of my office building during my lunch break to breathe, to remind myself that life existed outside lawyers and accusations. That's when I saw it. Mark's silver sedan parked across the street, 3 rows back, angled just enough that he had a clear view of the entrance. He was sitting in the driver's seat, motionless, staring straight ahead. No phone in his hand, no attempt to hide, just watching. Security noticed him before I did. One of the guards approached me later and asked, "Is that someone you know? He's been here all morning." My stomach twisted. "Yes," I said. "And no, he shouldn't be here." "Do you want us to intervene?" "Only if he tries to come inside," I told them. I didn't want this to become a spectacle, not at work, not in front of people who still thought my life was normal. Mark didn't approach. He didn't text. He didn't call. He just sat there until 5 o'clock, watching the building like I was some rare bird he might catch glimpses of if he was quiet enough. The next day, he followed me to lunch. I drove to a nearby cafe, trying to outrun my nerves. But there he was again. 3 cars back when I checked the rearview mirror. I parked. He parked across the street. I went inside. He stayed in his car, staring. It didn't matter where I went. He was always there, silent, lurking, pretending that proximity counted as intimacy. My lawyer sent a cease and desist to his attorney. The response? He is allowed to be present in public spaces. Legally true, emotionally suffocating. Week 2, he escalated. The first call went to my boss. Mark told him he was concerned about my mental state, that I was acting erratically, and that my behavior at home had become unpredictable and alarming. My boss, who had seen me work with steady hands through a dozen emergencies, asked, "Who is calling?" When Mark identified himself, my boss said, "Please refer any concerns through legal channels," and hung up. Mark called back 4 more times. Then he called HR. He claimed I had stolen money from him and that they should check if I was embezzling from the company too. That accusation triggered an immediate HR meeting. I walked in with my lawyer and a binder containing the PI report, court documents, and copies of Mark's restraining order filing. The HR representative looked like she'd aged 5 years in the last 10 minutes. "Ms. Carter," she said gently, "we're sorry you're dealing with this. Based on the documentation, we're treating these calls as part of a contentious personal dispute. No action will be taken against you. If the calls continue, we'll pursue harassment charges." For a moment, I felt relief so sharp it almost hurt. Then I felt rage. Mark was willing to burn my entire career just to punish me for refusing to forgive his affair. It was no longer heartbreak. It was war in slow motion. But Mark wasn't done. When work didn't break me, he went after my family. He called my mother. "Hi," he began, with a fragile, wounded voice I knew too well. "I need to talk to you about Elena. She's not well. She's imagining things. She thinks I cheated on her because she's having some kind of breakdown." My mother, who had never liked him and never tried to hide it, said, "If you cheated on my daughter, that's between you two and the lawyers. Don't call here again." He tried my father next. 10 seconds into the call, my father said, "You're the one who cheated, right? Lose this number," and hung up. Week 3 was where things turned surreal. Mark's lawyer filed an emergency motion accusing me of hiding marital assets and demanding access to all of my financial accounts, even the ones I'd had long before Mark moved in. According to them, the fact that I could afford a private investigator and a competent lawyer suggested undisclosed funds. In court, the judge asked Mark's attorney, "Do you have any evidence whatsoever to support this?" Silence. "Motion denied," the judge said. "Next time, bring facts, not suspicions." Even Mark looked embarrassed, not because of the lie, but because the lie failed. Then came the main event, the divorce hearing. Mark showed up looking like a tragic poet. Black suit, messy hair, red eyes, the picture of a man crushed under the weight of someone else's cruelty. His family sat behind him, arms crossed, faces arranged into a tableau of righteous fury. His lawyer began with the well-rehearsed sob story. "My client is devastated. He made one mistake during a difficult moment in his relationship." Ms. Carter responded with disproportionate retaliation, hiring a stalker, attempting to leave him destitute, and emotionally manipulating his family against him. My lawyer stood. "Objection. None of that is based in fact." "Sustained," the judge said immediately. "Stick to facts, counsel." Mark's lawyer tried again. "My client admits he reconnected with an old friend when he was feeling neglected. I didn't move, but my pulse tightened. Neglected." That was the narrative he was going with. "They met for coffee," the lawyer continued, "talked about emotions, and he spent time at a hotel to clear his mind. Nothing physical." My attorney, cool as ice, handed the judge the folder. "Your Honor, these photos were taken in public spaces by a licensed investigator. Photo 12 shows Mr. Hayes and the woman kissing in the parking lot. Photo 15 shows them entering room 308 together at 9:47 p.m. Photo 18 shows them leaving together the next morning. Photo 21 shows them at breakfast, returning an hour later. This is not emotional clarity. This is an affair." The judge flipped through the photos, then stared at Mark. "Sir," he said slowly, "you stayed in a hotel room for 2 nights with a woman who is not your partner. You were photographed engaging in physical affection. What exactly are you attempting to argue happened here?" His lawyer sputtered. "The photos don't prove anything about what occurred in the room." "They prove enough," the judge said flatly. Mark's face cracked. His mother covered her mouth. His sister glared at me like I had personally orchestrated the collapse of their entire bloodline. But we weren't done. Next came the asset division. Mark's lawyer demanded 50% of my home equity, $3,000 per month in support, half my retirement savings, ownership of the car I had helped him buy. My lawyer rebutted with surgical precision. Home, mine, purchased. Pre-relationship, finances, entirely separate, car. He keeps the one in his name and keeps paying for it. Retirement, untouched, separate accounts. Support. Minimal transitional assistance at best. When the judge delivered his ruling, the courtroom felt like someone sucked all the air out. House, 100% mine. Retirement, entirely mine. Car, each keeps their own. Support, $750 a month for 18 months and nothing more. Mark's lip trembled. His attorney stared at the table. His mother gasped. His sister whispered, "This isn't fair." The judge said plainly, "Actions have consequences." Afterward, in the parking lot, his mother screamed at me for destroying her family. His sister joined in. I walked past them without responding. Their noise didn't matter anymore. None of it did. By then, Mark had lost the house, the money, the relationship, and the version of himself he'd spent years selling to everyone. But instead of swallowing the truth, he clung to the fantasy that I had ruined his life. He had no idea the final blow was still coming, one that I wouldn't even deliver intentionally, one that would end everything between us for good. In the days after the court ruling, everything went strangely quiet. Quiet in the way a forest goes silent right before a storm hits. Mark had lost, publicly and decisively. The judge's ruling stripped away every excuse he'd been clinging to, every lie he'd fed his family, every delusion that he could twist this into my wrongdoing. For the first time, he was confronted with consequences he couldn't manipulate or guilt his way out of. But people like Mark don't accept accountability. They rewrite reality until they're the victim again. The silence lasted exactly 4 days. On the 5th, I got a phone call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Elena, it's me." His voice was soft, trembling, thick with manufactured regret. The same tone he used to get out of trouble when he forgot anniversaries, when he lost jobs, when he made promises he never kept. I didn't say anything. I don't know what to do. A shaky inhale. "You've left me with nothing. I can't afford my own place. I'm staying with my parents. Everyone thinks I'm a terrible person." He wanted sympathy. He wanted an opening. He wanted me to be the emotional scaffolding propping up the ruins of his ego. Instead, I said, "Block this number yourself before I do it," and hung up. The next day, his sister called me. Somehow she'd gotten my new number. I still don't know how. "Hey," she said, voice tense. "Look, I think you should know something." "I'm not interested." "You should be," she snapped. "My brother is not doing well. He's depressed. He's not eating. He cries all the time. He's barely functioning. Doesn't that bother you?" "No," I said honestly. She sucked in a breath. "He needs closure, just one conversation. He wants to apologize." "He had 6 years to be honest," I said. 3 days at the Westfield Hotel erased all of that. "You're really going to hold one mistake over him forever?" she asked. "A 3-day mistake?" I corrected. "Yes." Her tone sharpened. "If you'd been a better girlfriend, none of this would have happened." There it was, the family narrative, Mark as victim, me as problem. "I'm blocking this number," I said. "Tell him to stop using you as emotional delivery services." "God, you're heartless." Click. Silence. I blocked her too. Weeks passed. My life slowly unknotted itself. I slept through the night again. Work felt normal. I stopped checking the locks twice. My lawyer finalized the last documents. The house, my house, felt like mine again. Clean, quiet, safe. Then, one afternoon, I ran into Mark at Target. I wasn't prepared for it. I was holding a pack of paper towels, turned a corner, and there he was, standing beside the cleaning supplies, looking smaller somehow, older. His clothes hung loose on him. His eyes were red, the kind of red that came from either crying or not sleeping, or both. He froze. So did I. Then he whispered, "Elena?" I nodded once, crisp and detached. "Mark." I turned to leave. He followed. "Please," he said, voice cracking. "Just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." "No. I just want to apologize, properly. I never got—" "I don't need it," I said. "But I need it," he insisted. I stopped, turned to face him. "You need to apologize so you can move on," I said. "So you can feel better about what you did." He stared at me, stunned. Yes, I don't care if you move on, Mark. I don't care if you feel guilty or not. I don't even care if you forgive yourself. I'm done carrying this with you." His eyes filled with tears instantly, like a faucet turned on all at once. "I still love you," he whispered. "You loved her more," I replied. "Or you loved the feeling she gave you. Or you loved the escape. I don't know. But you didn't love me enough to stay loyal." "It wasn't like that." "It was exactly like that," I said. "I have photos. Raymond took 23. 2 nights. Same room, same bed, kissing in the parking lot, breakfast dates, luggage together. Don't insult both of us by pretending otherwise. His face broke. Fine, he said, almost shouting. You want the truth? Yes. I slept with her. Yes. It was wrong. Yes. I regret it every single day. There. Are you happy now? Indifferent, I said. He blinked hard. What? Indifferent is worse for you, isn't it? I asked. You want me angry. You want me hurt. You want me to still care. I don't. That's cold. No, Mark, I said. It's healed. He let out a broken breath. I don't know how to move on. You figure it out, I said. The same way I had to figure out how to rebuild myself while you were in hotel room 308. He wiped his eyes. Can we at least... We're done, I said. For good. I walked away. He didn't follow. That was the last time I heard his voice. That was the moment everything, the court hearings, the stalking, the tears, the lies, finally ended. Not with a final fight. Not with another courtroom scene. But with a quiet, steady truth. I no longer cared. The next 6 weeks were uneventful in a way that felt like a blessing. I repainted the bedroom, got new bedding, replaced the furniture he always complained about, donated everything that reminded me of him. Every corner of the house felt lighter, like it was exhaling for the first time in years. Work settled. My boss stopped tiptoeing around me. HR smiled again when I walked in. My parents invited me over for dinner every Sunday like I was a kid again. I let myself breathe, slowly and deeply. Sometimes late at night, doubts crept in, tiny ones, whispering about trust and fear and how fragile safety can be. But I pushed through them. Pain doesn't vanish, it transforms. Then something unexpected happened. I met someone, casually, slowly, at a bookstore of all places. He wasn't pushy. He wasn't charismatic in the loud, charming way Mark always was. He was quiet, observant, kind. He knew I was recently out of something awful. He didn't try to fill the silence. He didn't try to be a savior. He just asked if I wanted to get coffee sometime. And I said yes, not because I was healed, but because I was healing. Now, 3 months after the day Mark disappeared to clear his head, I can finally say this chapter is closed. The house is mine. The life is mine. The peace is mine. He wanted space. He wanted no explanations. So I gave him exactly what he asked for, permanently.